Hello, everybody, and welcome to the final Oscar prediction video of the year. Um, I say that of this particular season, rather. Um, and we're talking about Best Picture. And this is a really interesting category this year. First of all, a lot of great movies this year. Um, I don't think there's a single film in this lineup that I actively dislike, although there are certain films that I would not have nominated. There there was a lot of good filmmaking this year, and it's interesting when you look at this year in film. Obviously, because of the kind of year we had, a lot of films were postponed, and so there's not a ton of spectacle in the films that are nominated this year as opposed to most years. It's a lot of like indie stuff, a lot of like smaller, more introspective stuff, but I think there's a lot of great movies nominated this year. I will say my favorite film of the year is Wolfwalkers, and that's not nominated, and that's fine. It was never going to get nominated. But my second, third, fourth, and fifth favorite movies of the year are all nominated for Best Picture. So that, in and of itself, is pretty impressive. With that out of the way, let's get right to it. Final prediction video of the season. Let's make it count. Eighth most likely to win is Mank. Now, I know what you're thinking. What? Why would I say that this is the eighth most likely to win? It's got the most nominations. It's double-digit nominations. It's about Hollywood. It's about old Hollywood. You're saying this is the least likely to win? Yes, I am. And here's why. Because this movie on paper is a huge Oscar contender. But when it came out, there was a clear lack of passion in the way people responded to the film. People were like, oh, okay. We kind of went into the movie thinking it was going to be about the making of Citizen Kane, and it turns out that's not really what it's about. It's about the political stuff that was going on in Los Angeles around that time, and how that vaguely parallels the events of Citizen Kane. The screenplay was written by David Fincher's late father, Jack Fincher, and who wrote it before he died. And Fincher, I imagine, David Fincher was so attached to his father's screenplay he didn't want to rewrite it. And the film has worked well for a lot of people, but many people did find it cold and difficult to fully get into on an emotional level. And clearly enough, people liked the film that it got the nominations it did. But if you look at the nominations, it's missing. First of all, it's missing Best Editing, which people assumed it was going to get because the editing in the film is noticeable and flashy. And the film also missed out on a nomination for Best Screenplay, making it the only Best Picture nominee to fail to get a screenplay nomination. Like, because the screenplay categories are combined into two, it's usually pretty easy for a Best Picture nominee to get on, and the one Best Picture nominee to not be nominated in screenplay is the one about a screenwriter writing arguably the most famous Academy Award winning screenplay ever written. Like, how does that happen? But it happened, and I think it really shows a lack of passion behind the film. It's not really predicted to win anything outside of production design. Sorry. So people do respond to the film enough, but it doesn't get the love that a lot of other movies this year got. There's not a lot to get behind for many people outside of the strong technical achievements of the film, which are rewarded in the tech categories. But in terms of giving it Best Picture, no, it doesn't have enough wins in the season. It was pretty much ignored by the Critics Awards. We thought going in that this was going to be a big contender, but no one really cares about it the way they care about the other nominees. So, Mank, in my humble opinion, is last. Seventh most likely to win is Sound of Metal. Okay, here's where things start getting interesting. So, this movie is an incredible film. It's my fourth favorite movie of the year. Very, very well done. And it's nominated in screenplay and in editing, which is really important. It has some strong nominations. Why is it not a bigger contender? The reason I think it's not a bigger contender is because even though the film is beloved, one, it doesn't have any major wins for Best Picture in the precursors. Two, it doesn't have a director nomination. And only 4 films in history have won. Actually, no, 5, because Green Book and Argo and okay, so 5 films in history have won picture without director, and it does happen, but I think it happens to films with a little bit more passion and precursor love than this. I mean, this has passion. Don't get me wrong, but the main reason I feel it's not going to win Best Picture is because it's not as important a movie. The Academy usually likes to give this award to really important movies, and this film is about the deaf community, which is not a nothing issue. It's definitely an issue that exists in the real world, but compared to some of the more important topical stuff that's going around in some of the bigger contenders, it doesn't seem like it's as far-reaching. Again, it's an incredible film, but it did come out kind of early in the season too, and while it does have a lot of strong support, Jesus, I don't know why I'm yawning so much. While it does have a lot of strong support, it just doesn't feel like enough. If it had a director nomination, if it had a win somewhere else in the season for Best Picture, then I could consider it. But it just seems like a low-ranking film because what's the message? What message would the Academy be sending by giving this award Best Picture? I think the top contenders all have a message of this is the narrative we're trying to create. And this one, very, very good film, but doesn't have that same type of narrative. So I rank it number 7. 6th most likely to win is The Father. Oh boy. So this is an incredible film. If you haven't seen it, you owe it to yourself to see it. And it is this is really tricky because it's very similar to Sound of Metal. It has the same types of nominations, also nominated in screenplay and editing, also missing from director. Has strong nominations, is clearly well loved, and in my opinion, it's one of the best films of the year. It might possibly be my favorite of the Best Picture nominees. It's really, really close between this and another movie we'll talk about later, but it's definitely an incredible film. Why is it not winning? Same reason as Sound of Metal, because it's not nominated for director, because it's not as important an issue. Where Sound of Metal was about the deaf community, this is about dementia, which, again, is not a nothing issue. That is talked about, that is a big thing in the real world, but it's not like an important political thing that's topical and we need to talk about because it needs to change. This is something that a lot of older Academy voters will relate to, and the film, as it's coming out and as people are starting to see it, it is getting a lot of press, but I think the press might be enough to carry it into a win for a screenplay or maybe actor, but not in picture. And also, it doesn't have any major wins. It even lost Best British Film at BAFTA, despite being nominated for Best Picture there. The film is certainly very well liked, and I love this film, but it's not the type of thing that needs to win Best Picture. The fact that it got these nominations is great because it means future generations will be able to discover this film and see how incredible it is, but this is not a Best Picture winner. There's no real narrative behind giving this Best Picture, and so I don't see it happening. 5th most likely to win is Judas and the Black Messiah. Okay, so now we're starting to enter the realm of possibility here. Judas and the Black Messiah, it has a lot against it, and mainly the fact that it's missing nominations for directing and editing, making it the only Best Picture nominee to just have screenplay out of the crucial 3 categories that you usually need all 3 to win picture, which would put it as a disadvantage. However, there's 2 things that show that love for Judas is strong. One of them is the out of nowhere WTF nomination for Lakeith Stanfield, which we still don't know how that happened, but if there's one thing it proves is that people are watching this movie and people are really responding to this movie. And the second thing is we had assumed going into nominations that Ma Rainey's Black Bottom and One Night in Miami would both be nominated for Best Picture, and both of them were left off. And because of that, Judas and the Black Messiah is the only quote-unquote black movie in the lineup, and given the year we've had, there are going to be people that vote for Judas based on that alone. And I'm not saying that that is the correct way of thinking, but it is the way of thinking that people are going to have. And so this will get votes, and if this had like a win somewhere else in the season, I would be saying, dude, watch out for this. It could take it. If it had a director nomination, I'd be like, watch out for this. As it happens, I think this will get votes, and it could be the most shocking Best Picture winner ever, but it could happen. I think it's more likely than the bottom three that I already mentioned. I'm still not going to predict it because it's missing from director and editing, and because it doesn't have any big wins. But it is definitely an important film, and it definitely would send a message. So it's got that going for it. It's not impossible, but given the strength of the top four, I don't see it happening. Okay, so here's the thing about this top four. The number one film is set in stone, has been set in stone for a while, and 2, 3, and 4 are all kind of fighting for second place. And I think there's a very real possibility that 2, 3, or 4 could upset. But this is the order I have them in, and you may not agree with them. Fourth most likely to win is The Trial of the Chicago 7. And this is crazy that I'm saying that, because every ranking, everyone else who's doing Oscar predictions has Trial in second place. And I understand why, because on paper, it is the type of movie that wins Best Picture. It is timely, it is important, and it wants you to know how important it is. The whole world is watching. Even Joe Biden said that in his inauguration. And it is the only film that, technically speaking, has another win this season, and that is it won for Best Ensemble at SAG, which does occasionally help correlate with the Best Picture winner. So I understand why people have this at number 2, and yet the film, for all it has, first of all, it's missing a director nomination, which is usually something you need. But moreover than that, the film, I don't think, has a lot of passion. And maybe I'm wrong about that, but it feels like the movie came out so long ago, and no one is... We're sort of forced to keep it in the conversation because the Oscar season's still going on, but I don't think people still want to talk about the movie. We're not talking about the movie because of its merits as a film, which are perfectly fine, but the film does not stand out as a piece of filmmaking compared to the top 3. And so it's being kept in the conversation because it's important. Don't you know this is the important movie? But the fact that it couldn't even win at Golden Globe, which it feels like that would be a big frontrunner for it, and the fact that it's not the frontrunner for screenplay based on the way that race is going, like, if it wins Best Picture, it wins this and editing, and that's it, and that doesn't feel like a very realistic path to Best Picture. That's what I'm taking into consideration. What is the path for Best Picture? Picture, and then what else does it win on the night? And does that combination make sense? And for Trial, it doesn't make sense, because either it's picture and editing, or it's picture and nothing else. I don't think it has a realistic chance at any other award. Possibly screenplay, but I think that's very unlikely at this point. And so, while I understand why so many people have it at number 2, I just don't think it has a realistic chance. I don't think the passion is there. I don't think the support is there. It's not a bad film, but It just doesn't feel like people are passionate about it compared to the films that I'm about to list. Starting with third most likely to win is Minari. Okay, this movie on paper kind of feels like it should be your Best Picture winner because this has passion, man. This film is peaking at the right moment. This film has a lot of support behind it. This film is a crowd pleaser. That's how I would describe it. I haven't seen one person say they don't like Minari. It's the kind of movie that appeals to everybody, even though it's a simple and even though it's slower paced, even though not a lot happens, it's just such a peaceful, warm movie that people are really loving it. And I want to predict this to win Best Picture, because it makes so much sense to me. But first of all, it's missing the nomination for Best Editing, which, granted, the editing in the film is not the thing you think about when you think about that movie, but at the same time, editing is usually considered so important to be a Best Picture winner, and the nomination is just not there. And second of all, this does not have a single precursor win. If this film had won SAG, I would be like, this is the runner-up, this might be a winner, this clearly has support. But the fact that it doesn't have that, the fact that it really doesn't have anything big, it has a couple of critics awards, but that's basically it. It's not... I just don't feel like the film itself, and I want to be wrong. I want to be wrong because it's a great movie and it would make a great Best Picture winner. But I have to see a little piece of evidence that it can come from behind and win. I want it to have won somewhere in the season. And plus, what I was just saying earlier with Trial of Chicago 7, what is the path to Best Picture? What else is this winning on the night? It's winning Supporting Actress and maybe Original Score if you really want to push it, but I think that's probably going to Soul. Can it really just be Supporting Actress and Picture? That doesn't seem right to me. It needs to win something else. And so I don't see this film winning Best Picture, despite the fact that it's very good and despite the fact that it almost feels like it should be winning. The path is just not there. However, one film that I do believe almost, kind of sort of has a path to Best Picture is second most likely to win, and that is Promising Young Woman. So this movie is one of two films that has nominations in director, editing, and screenplay. And the editing nomination is key because we did not expect that. People were predicting Mank or Minari would get that fifth slot, and it was kind of a surprise that it went to Promising Young Woman. But the editing is very good, and it shows that the film does have very real support. And if you look at what it could win on the night, it's the frontrunner to win screenplay, which we've already seen one movie take home screenplay and picture and nothing else. That was Spotlight. But it could also win lead actress. And if it's screenplay, lead actress, picture, then that makes sense. Now, much like Minari, it doesn't have any major wins going into the night, unless you want to count the BAFTA giving it Best British Film. But it's always been a part of the conversation, I feel like. And I, for the longest time, said, okay, if it just wins this, I'll be prepared to predict it. If it just wins the Globe, if it just wins Critics' Choice, if it just wins BAFTA, and it kept on missing all throughout the season, I do think there's a very real chance that this could win Best Picture. Because I keep seeing people talk about it. And it's the kind of film, even though I think The Father is a very, very good film and that'd be right near the top of my ballot, if I had an Oscar ballot, I believe I would vote for A Promising Young Woman. Because you want to talk about important. This film really does have something to say, and by God, you are going to listen. And it's absolutely incredible, the what they do. And a lot of people, particularly older Academy voters, have been like, yeah, but the film does make me feel uncomfortable, which, to be fair, is kind of the whole point. uh, the film is meant to put you in a very specific situation and make you ask questions about yourself. And even people that don't agree with what the film is saying, at least it's getting them to start a conversation that is long overdue. So the film is definitely doing its job and would be a great Best Picture winner, would be a very unusual Best Picture winner because of what a bold, daring, uncomfortable film it is. But I mean, it's not the Academy hasn't given it to uncomfortable films before. Both 12 Years a Slave and No Country for Old Men do kind of fit the bill as uncomfortable. But the film is very well liked, certainly, and has always had just enough. We've always known it has support with Emerald Fennell becoming a staple of the season for Best Director, and this nomination for editing, and the win it had for a British film. I feel like it's right there. And again, it's winning screenplay. It may or may not win actress. I'm predicting it to win actress. So I feel like it's right there. I feel like if there is an upset, it's not going to be Trial, it's not going to be Minari, it's going to be Promising Young Woman, because the hype for that film is real. People really are responding to that film, and it's easy to see why. That being said, number one most likely to win, and you probably know this already, is Nomadland. Okay, I've talked about Nomadland a little bit in the past, and I just want to be very honest with you. I do not dislike this movie, but it didn't hit me the way it hit so many other people. And maybe that's because I'm young and I don't fully relate with Fern's character, or maybe it's because I I've already seen this type of lifestyle depicted in other media and it doesn't strike me as being so new anymore. Whatever the reason, the film just doesn't click with me the way it clicks for so many others, and which is fine. It is not my position to say that a film doesn't affect you. If a film affects you on an emotional level, no one else can tell you that you're wrong. And maybe like I will come around eventually, but the film doesn't do much for me right now. With that being said, I it's hard to argue against it when it's won Golden Globe for drama, PGA, Critics' Choice, and BAFTA. It's won everything it needs to, and it has not slowed down. It's the frontrunner to win director because of the insane amount of wins Chloe Zhao has gotten. At this point, based on statistics alone, you would be foolish to bet against it. Even though, from the very beginning, Nomadland has never sat quite right with me as a Best Picture winner, not because of my personal feelings on the film, but because of the type of film it is. It reminds me a lot of Boyhood and Roma, which are both films that were at one point predicted to win Best Picture, but they're both, all those films are kind of slow-paced and kind of not a lot happens, and they're meant to be this artistic, like, personal story for the director. And I'm not going to say they're bad films, because they're not, but it is difficult for a lot of people to get into. I have seen some people, like, I did watch Nomadland, and I was like, that's it. I watched it with my mom, who had a similar reaction as me, and in fact is perhaps even more negative on the film than I am. And I mean, I do understand. It's a film that doesn't really have much of a plot, and it's, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get it. But clearly there is something there to get. I'm just not seeing it. And to be fair, last year when everyone was screaming about how phenomenal and perfect Parasite was, I was the one person being like, is it really that good, guys? And as the past year has gone on, I have come around to a little more, and I'm like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, it's pretty darn good. So maybe the same thing will happen with Nomadland, and I'll come to see it more. I do still feel that something's not quite right. Like, it's too easy, the fact that it's won all these awards. But the fact that it won Globe was sort of when I knew. I'm like, okay, it's crazy for the Golden Globes to give their Best Picture award to something like this. And I do think it's very possible that an upset can happen. However, at this point, to actively bet against Nomadland would be silly without any sort of proper evidence that anything else can win. And people are saying if there's an upset, it'll be Trial. I think it'll be Promising Young Woman. I wouldn't write out Minari, honestly. It's crazy. So, quick little run through. I've been predicting the Oscars for 7 or 8 years now, and every single year I've gotten picture or director wrong. So, first year I properly predicted the Oscars was 2012. We all knew Argo was winning, but Ben Affleck was not nominated, and I was young and rather naive, and I thought they would use the situation as an excuse to give Steven Spielberg a third Oscar, and that did not happen. And then the next year, Gravity versus 12 Years a Slave, it was the PGA tie, and I loved Gravity, so I said, I think that's going to win, and it didn't. And then the next year, but I got director right. Next year, I also got director right. I said it was going to be Inarritu, but I was sort of hedging my bets the opposite way, and I'm like, they're going to give it to Boyhood. They're going to split the awards, and they didn't. They gave it to Birdman, but I was happy about that. Year after that, a lot of people got picture wrong and director right that year. I actually correctly said that Spotlight was going to win because I just felt like it was the more appropriate Best Picture winning film. But I got director wrong. I said that George Miller would win for Mad Max Fury Road. And to be fair, the movie won 6 tech Oscars, so I feel like it must have come really close to Best Director. And then after that, that was when I properly started doing YouTube, so you probably know. 2017, I said 3 Billboard. Well, actually, skipping a year. 2016, I said La La Land would win picture, as we all did, and I was right for about 2 minutes, and then they changed it. So, hard to blame me on that one. 2017, because of what happened with La La Land, I was like, the SAG stat is really important, it has to be nominated for SAG, so I think 3 Billboards is going to win picture, and I was wrong. They gave it to Shape of Water. I got director right, picture wrong. Year after that, I said Roma, it was Green Book. A lot of people made the same mistake due to the amount of precursors that Roma had. And then finally, last year, I correctly said that Parasite was going to win Best Picture. I was feeling the momentum. I was feeling how much everyone loved it. But I predicted Mendes to win Best Director, as we all did, and that was the big upset of the night. So, in summary, I have never gotten picture and director right. I've always missed one or the other. And Chloe Zhao in Best Director seems so locked, it seems insane to think that anybody else could win. Which is why I'm nervous about this Nomadland prediction. Either this is the year I finally break that stat, or this is the year that there's a big upset in Best Picture, in which case it's my fault. And the stat remains. But honestly, I would be more excited to see either Promising Young Woman or Minari win. Trial, not so much. That's a good movie, but it just seems like such a basic Best Picture winner. And Nomadland, I would at least, even if I don't fully get the movie, I would at least have respect for it because it is such a different choice. But we'll see what happens. Nomadland is my official prediction. It's hard to bet against it with everything it has, but I am going to be nervous. Is this the year the stat gets broken? We will see. Okay, so I'm probably going to do a smaller video after the Oscars, just summing up what happened and my thoughts. And then I'm sure at some point I'm going to do an early Oscar prediction article for next year, but I don't know how much of that is going to happen. Also, I don't know how active I'm going to be on this YouTube channel in general, because I'm currently in pre-production on a movie. If anyone wants to audition for Wolves, the link is in the description. Please, 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 I need all the help I can get. And I want to return to From Pixels to Pictures. It's been a long time since I've done that. So I may do that soon, but I don't know how active this YouTube channel is going to be, just letting you know that right off the bat. But thank you very much for going on this journey with me, and I do want to say, a while back, not a while back, a couple of days ago, I was on a podcast. I was on a Zoom, Patreon-only Zoom call with Matt Neglia and Next Best Picture, and there was someone in the chat that had a comment about, "Hey Connor, I recognize you from your YouTube videos," which was crazy. I'm like, people actually watch these? I didn't think people actually watch them. Next year I'll have better audio, and I won't ramble so much, and I won't yawn so much. Hopefully. We will see. Thank you guys. Thank you in particular, whoever left that comment. I'm very, very grateful at you for watching. And I will see you whenever I see you next. Take care. Bye.